Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. This is not an all my pets video because I live with my mom, my stepdad, and my younger sibling. So not every animal that I'm talking about in this video is my responsibility, but I do live with all of them. So I just really wanted to do a video to take you through all of the pets in my house by name, tell you a little bit about their story, especially so that when I refer to different names, because all of our animals in this house have like people names, so when I refer to them in other videos, if you've seen this one, you might have more of an idea of who I'm talking about. I'm going to start with the oldest, the one that's been here the longest, and then move to the newest animal. This is not as extreme as most pet YouTubers, have amounts of animals. I think this is a really normal amount of animals for, a family that has like jobs and leaves the house and that sort of thing, but then also me, who's like obsessive and I don't know how to like things in a chill way. So there are a fair amount of animals in this house, and most of them are mine. But we'll get there. So the oldest animal in this house is our little shih tzu poodle, Zoe. She is, I believe she's 11 years old. And the fun story about Zoe is actually, so when I was younger and my parents decided to get divorced, my mom went a little animal crazy, and it was great. So there was a point where there were 3 cats in this house, but my mom really wanted a dog. So my eldest sister, Emily, had just got her dog, Kaylee, and my mom wanted a dog from the same litter, but by the time my mom called the breeder had already sold all the dogs. There were none left, so, my mom was sad. We went to the humane society a couple of times, couldn't find a dog. A couple of weeks go by, and the breeder ends up calling us back and says, someone returned one of the puppies because the puppy was untrainable. Would you like this puppy? And my mom goes, yes, definitely. And she goes and she gets the dog, and that is our Zoe that we have today. I have no idea what that man was trying to train her to do. But Zoe's a pretty well-behaved dog. She barks a lot. That's probably the only caveat. And I think if, my mom and my stepdad had worked a little bit more on that when she was a puppy, she probably wouldn't be so bad. So I really have no idea what that guy was trying to train her to do. Because she's just, I don't know. And she was a puppy. Like, she was so young. He couldn't have had her for very long. So I don't know what he wanted from her, but she doesn't go to the bathroom in the house, and that's the only thing I can think of that he would have been trying to train her for, so whatever. His loss was our gain, and we've had Zoe for so long. She was my family's first ever dog. That's not true. First dog in my lifetime, at least. And she's so sweet. She's such a little old lady now, though. She's just a stinker. Like, she used to not care about cats. She liked them, kind of, and the older she gets, the more sort of grumpy or crotchety she gets around the cats or around our other dog. Like, she definitely is getting, she's becoming a little angry old lady, and I think it's adorable. It's annoying sometimes, but it's so cute. I love her so much. She's such a goofball. And then the second oldest animal in our house is actually my cat, Lena. Now, I want to be very honest with you about Lena, because I talk about Lena a lot on my channel, because she is my little fuzzy best friend. Like, Lena, especially now that we've all been working from home and I haven't really left the house much in the past couple of months, I spend all day, every day with Lena. She's usually sitting on my bed beside me while I work on my computer, which is right there. We're right beside each other all the time. So I just adore her, but she's not the sweet, cuddly little cat that you see on the dodo and that sort of thing. She's a little shit. And I want to be very clear that is part of the reason I love her, because I think she's a perfect reflection of my personality. She's a little bit grumpy sometimes, and I just think it gives her so much character. If I'm not paying enough attention to her because I'm working, she jumps up at me from the floor and, attacks my arm. It just happened today. There's, a scratch over here somewhere, because she just jumps up and goes, just one single, and she never really gets me very hard or very deep or nothing. It's just, it's play aggression. That's all it is. But I think it's so funny, and it makes me laugh, and she's just, she's so needy, and she just loves my entire family so much, and she's such a goof, and then you pet her. I just love her, and I've never met a cat that's so, emotive. She shows so much expression on her face. You can tell when she's mad, because the eyes go, and the ears, she's just, you can tell just by looking at her. I feel like I've told the story about how I adopted Lena 1,000 times, but I am going to tell it again. So, I was 20 years old. I was just finishing my internship at a local radio station, and I was about to get hired at that radio station. And I was also about to graduate college. And so this was 6 years ago at this point, and I was under the impression that I was going to move out because I was trying to. I was trying to find an accessible apartment. I was trying to do all this stuff. I was, trying so hard to become, a really great adult. And this was 6 years ago, and nothing ever happened. But I was also, going out into the world and doing things, being breakable and being in a wheelchair. I've been sort of, kept safe all the time, and I'm still really like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm paranoid all the time, but I started taking the bus more and going places and that sort of thing. And I had been to like this area of town, and there was like a big Shoppers Drug Mart, and I was looking at makeup, and I looked across the street, and I noticed the Humane Society was there, and I had never noticed it before. Like I knew there was a Humane Society, but I didn't have a concept, a geographical concept of where it was. So I was like, I'll just go in and look. Rookie mistake. So I go in, and they have 2 rooms of cats, and I go in the first room, and I just right immediately I look down in the bottom right corner, the shelf, or like the cage that's like right on the floor, is this little like apricot colored tabby cat, and she's a kitten, kind of like an older kitten, a teenage cat if you will, and she's sitting up front and center in her cage, sitting pretty and like falling asleep while she's sitting there. And I look at her and I just think she's so cute, and then I just go around and I look at the rest of the cats, and then I go into the second room and I look at all the cats. And I go back into the first room, and I'm just casually looking at all the cats again, doing my best to ignore this kitten in the bottom corner that I am, like, so drawn to. And one of the employees walks in, she goes, "Do you see anybody that you like?" And I said, "Well, that cat down there," and I look at her tag, and it says Lena, and I'm like, "That cat down there, Lena, you know, she's really cute." And before my brain can even process what's happened, this woman has taken Lena out of the cage, put her in the little carrier cage, and was like, "Come hang out with her in this room." So I ended up in this little room with Lena, and the woman just kind of passed her to me. And this is another reason why I love Lena, because she tricked me that day, because I had this kitten, and she was sitting here, like, on my chest, and I must have been in there with her for, like, 45 minutes, and she didn't move, she wasn't mad, she didn't whine, she just looked at me and looked around, and she was so, I knew in my heart of hearts, like, this is my cat, like, I'm not leaving without her. But I still live at home, and, like, you can't just, at this point, I was still of the mindset that you can't just bring an animal into not someone else's house without asking it first. So, I'm talking to the employee when she comes back into the room. I'm like, "Listen, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't let her go. If I don't bring Lena home, she's so cute. Someone else is going to come in and adopt her, and I'm never going to get over it." And the woman tells me, like, "We only just brought her in. Like, she hasn't been spayed or had her shots or anything yet, really. So, I mean, you can't take her home today anyway. So, even if you bought her, she couldn't come home for, like, at least another week." Done. So, I signed all the paperwork. I paid the adoption fee of $25. And I came home, and I said, "Mom, can I get a cat?" And she goes, "Nope." "How about now?" "Nope." "How about now?" "Nope." We went on like that for probably the rest of the evening. "Can I get a cat?" "No." "Can I get a cat?" "No." Eventually, I broke her down to, "Abby, you're 20 years old. If you want to get a cat, I can't stop you." And that's when I told her, "Great, I'm glad you think that way, because I already signed and paid for her." And my mom loves to tell people that story, because she thinks that's such a shit for that, but I mean, Lena needed to be part of this family. So then, unfortunately, that was like the beginning of September, and she ended up with like a really bad upper respiratory infection, because that was when you're on the shelter, as it often does. And I didn't get to bring her home till like the end of October, and I went back and visited her like 3 times a week, every week, and she was quarantined at one point because she scratched somebody, and then all this, like her spay surgery was so delayed because she had to get through all of these quarantines for scratching people, and her upper respiratory infection, which never really went away, and it took so long. And so now I've had her for this October. It'll be 6 years since I got her, and she's a butthead, but she's well behaved in the grand scheme of things. I mean, she doesn't scratch anything other than her designated scratching things and my headrest. But the only reason she scratches my headrest on my chair is because she sits up here. She's never gone to the bathroom anywhere outside of the litter box. Once I put her on the right food, like I found the food that worked for her, she doesn't throw up or anything. I brush her while she eats, and she lets me do that just fine. Like, with the exception of the fact that she has an insane amount of energy, and I have to play with her all the time, or else she has that play aggression. She's a really well-behaved cat. I just need to play with her more. I understand that it's my fault. And she's my little one. I love her. She doesn't like to be picked up. She does not like to be held. She 100% tricked me on that front that day. But that's okay. I kind of think it's like a little bit special that she tricked me. I think it's kind of funny, because I would do that if I was a cat. I would pretend to love to be cuddled and then be like, "Psych." I just love her. Another thing that might be interesting to know about Lena is, like I said, she never really got over her upper respiratory infection. So my older sister Sam takes her to the vet, not me, because I am in a wheelchair. So it's difficult. I'd have to take 2 city buses to take her there myself. But then if someone took me, then they'd have to worry about the manual chair and then the cat. Like, it's just easier if someone who is able-bodied takes my cat to the vet. So Sam takes her for me. And the vet originally didn't really seem to mind that she has some lingering sort of symptoms from her respiratory infection. Really, she has no symptoms other than the fact that she boogers and sneezes. And she used to sneeze a lot, like, probably TMI, but like massive boogers would shoot out of her nose and like stick to the walls. So he put her on antibiotics to begin with, and they helped, but her boogers never really went away. So more recently, she went to the vet again and got a different vet at the same clinic. And this vet wants to try different things, like wants to try more aggressively to try to get rid of her lingering boogers, which I really appreciate. So now she's on a different kind of medication. I think this one's an antifungal, and then we're going to try like an antiviral, and we're just going to try a whole bunch of different medicines that I can actually afford to try to help her boogers a little bit. She's only been on this new medicine for about a week at this point, so I can't really tell you if I've seen a difference or not, but we're doing our best. She's been pretty good at taking her medicine. I just put it in a little bit of wet food, and she eats the wet food and doesn't even know that there's medicine in it. So that's great. What else? What else do I need to tell you about Lena? Oh yeah, speaking of the vet, I learned this year that the vet that saw her last year for her annual checkup labeled her as like what I affectionately refer to as a caution kitty. So the vet won't see her again unless I sedate her before she goes to the vet. So they gave me for free. Like this is how bad Lena is. I didn't even have to pay for her sedative pills. So before she goes to the vet next time, I have to sedate my cat. We have had animals in this house, you know, a fair amount throughout my life, and even a couple before my parents broke up, like cats at least. And I have never met an animal that had to be sedated before they could go to the vet. So now Lena has to be sedated before she goes to the vet. I really should have seen this coming because of her sometimes aggression with me. Usually I'm the kind of person that says an animal is defensive, not aggressive, but Lena is aggressive. I should have seen that she would be bad with the vet, but I never thought she'd be bad enough that she has to be sedated. So I guess the benefit to that is the next time she goes to the vet, I can pay for him to trim her nails because she's never had her nails trimmed. They don't really grow very long because she's really good at scratching and keeping them filed down, but it'll be nice to have them actually trimmed by a professional for once, I think. But that's the thing. So next year at her next vet appointment, she will have to be sedated. And so that's Lena. So Lena, I assumed, was going to be the longest section of this video. Her and Zoe get along. Okay, for most of Lena's life here, her and Zoe have gone along just fine. Sometimes Zoe gets a little bit, I don't want to say food aggressive, because she doesn't do anything about it. She just gets worked up and, like, growls if someone gets too close to her food. But lately, like, as Zoe's getting a little bit older and a little more grumpy with age, she gets a little bit madder at Lena for, like, little things. Like, if Lena's laying near her on the bed, she gets mad and, like, walks away. I'm gonna blame it on Zoe getting old and not on Lena, because Lena hasn't done anything different. Zoe just seems to be madder at her. I don't know. So, of course, I have a younger sibling who is 5 years younger than me. So even though I was 20 and the younger one was 15 at the time, I got a cat. So my mom decided that the younger one also gets a cat. So, what was it? Maybe 6 months after I actually brought Lena home. No more than that. Probably more like 8 months. So if I brought Lena home in October, I think Heather came here in around, I want to say April of the next year, but I'm not totally sure. And Heather is the opposite of Lena in so many ways. Heather is afraid of everything. Heather is your stereotypical scaredy cat, and it makes me so sad. There are very few people that she trusts. Actually, her parent, my younger sibling, is, you know, the only person that she really trusts, and then me for some reason. I'm honored that I was chosen by Heather to be trusted, but if she's not upstairs in, like, her domain, she's in my room. I don't know what I did, but she likes it in here, and she likes hanging out with me, so that's great. She's a big, fat cat. I don't know why. She doesn't eat very much. But she's a sweetheart, and she's so soft, and she's one of those, like, cats that you can just pet all over, and she's chill with it. Where, like, Lena has specific zones that you can pet her, and if you pet her outside of those zones, you're gonna get knifed. But Heather's just, like, you can just blub that cat, and she just, like, worms around on the ground and takes it. But she is terrified. She is terrified of everything, and it makes me so sad. Like, I like, what happened to her to make her so scared? You know, like, why is Lena so confident and then Heather's so scared of everything? It breaks my heart. Like, what happened to her before she came here that she's so scared? Because she is also from the shelter, and she was actually pregnant when the shelter found her. So when they went in to do her spay, they nixed the pregnancy, and so I forgot that that's why I call her Booby, because when she came here, she had all of her nipples were like boobs. So I call her Booby. I forgot that that's why I call her Booby. She's so cute. I love her so much. She's just like a little pear. I don't have a lot to say about Heather because I don't see her very often because she doesn't come out very often. But she's a sweetheart of a cat and she's scared of everything. So she would have been here 5 years now, about-ish, I guess. Because not quite as long as Lena, but not too far off. So then after Heather, the next animal we got was Maddy. And Maddy is our little Jack Russell poodle dog. Maddy we've had since she was like a puppy. I always forget how small she was when we first got her, but then I look at like pictures of her like laying and she was like this big in like a little bed, and now she's just like absolutely insane. I love Maddy. She is insane. I think my mom and my stepdad found her on Kijiji, and I don't know how much they paid for her. I don't know anything about that, but I've never met a dog with more energy. She's got to be like 5 or 4 years old at this point too, and she just runs around like a maniac all the time. They throw the frisbee and she just gets the zoomies outside still, and she wants to play tug of war all the time, and she's so strong. Like, there is not a moment that Maddy does not want you to play with her. And I have this picture, I'm going to insert it here, and it's of Maddy and Lena when Maddy was just a puppy and they're laying in the same dog bed together, and like Lena's ears are completely flat, but even though she's clearly annoyed, she's putting up with it. She's laying there with the puppy of her own volition and not getting mad. And I'll never forget that, because you could see how annoyed she was, but she never lashed out. She never hurt baby Maddy puppy, and her and Maddy get along just fine. You can tell that Lena likes Zoe better, but Maddy tolerates Lena better than Zoe does. I don't know what that's about. It's just something about Maddy's silly face that makes her like the cutest, dorkiest looking dog ever. And she's so sweet. She constantly wants to be pet. She constantly wants attention. Zoe, maybe it's because Zoe was raised with cats, because we had cats at the time when we got Zoe, that she's a little more standoffish. She's a little more independent. She's a little more like her own boss, rather than Maddy, who needs to be around somebody all the time. But Zoe was also home alone a lot more when she was a puppy than Maddy was. Maddy almost always had someone home when she was a puppy, so that's probably why she's a little clingier to us. But she's so cute. I love her so much. I love both of our dogs. We have such great dogs. They're so loud though. Like, if only you saw the chunks of video that I have to cut out because I'm just sitting here waiting for them to stop barking. Having dogs is great. I love having 2 dogs, but it has definitely taught me that I don't know that living by myself I would ever want to have dogs. I'm definitely more of a cat person, and I just think that's because the work that goes into a cat is work that I can manage a little bit better on my own. Like, having to take a dog out to go to the bathroom all the time as someone in a wheelchair, I feel like that would be so difficult, whereas it's so much easier just to scoop Keller. That's not to say I don't like dogs. I love dogs. I especially love big dogs, and we have 2 small dogs, but I just feel like I'm more of a cat person, you know? Fast forward to last year, March 2019, I guess. And that's when the next animal comes in. You can actually see the next animal right here. I had been bothering at my job for us to get an office cat, sort of jokingly, because we live in a very old building, and I was like, listen, if we get an office cat, like, it'll be so cute, it'll be so great, and it'll help with the rodents. And my boss was always like, what about people who are allergic to cats? And I was always like, we'll just get rid of them. And then so for my birthday, they all sort of teamed up, and they got me an office pet, my fish, Henry. Now, Henry is here now in my room, in my house, because of the pandemic. So he lived at work the entire time before that, and I never planned on him coming here. I planned on him living his whole life in the newsroom, but I wasn't about to leave the responsibility of feeding the fish and cleaning the tank and that sort of thing up to somebody else when he was my responsibility. He was my gift. So my friend Shelby, thank God, at the sort of the beginning of the pandemic, when she was one of the last ones to kind of be filtered out of the building, so she took the fish and brought him here for me. So I'm very grateful for that, because I don't know that he'd still be alive if I had left it up to other people. Getting Henry was like great, because having a fish was something I never really thought about before, and I didn't know anything about fish, especially not betta fish, when I first got him. Betta, beta, I say it both ways, so I need you to just accept that right now. Sometimes I say beta, sometimes I say betta, because I don't know which one is right, so I just throw them around. But I didn't know anything about betta fish when I got him, and I'm going to be honest with you, I still don't know a whole lot. I am learning as I go here, and Henry specifically, I don't know what's up with him, but he is like the toughest fish ever. Like, the amount of, I don't want to say abuse, but the amount of abuse I have unintentionally put him through while learning how to take care of a fish is astounding because he just is fine and he is tough and he likes to eat and he likes to hang out in his tank. Because when I first got him, he was in a bowl and I kept him in a bowl until I learned that bowls were bad, and I didn't know that, so then I bought him a tank, and I was going to tank with a filter, and it doesn't have a heater because it is hot in this room and he's right beside something else that's heated. So yeah, he doesn't really need it. It's warm enough over there as it is. But it's just something I never thought about before, keeping a fish or keeping, how to do it. So it's been a really interesting learning experience. Would I ever do it again? Possibly. But I had never thought about having a fish before Henry. And it's kind of neat. And then, of course, the most recent sort of big animal in this house was August of last year, when I started watching reptile YouTube videos. And I love them, and I kept watching them, and I wanted a bearded dragon. But then I realized I don't have the space for a bearded dragon, so instead I got a Crested Gecko, and that's my Crested Gecko, Roger. So I got him from a local pet store here in Niagara. It's called Petland. And Petland, I realized, is a chain, but they're sort of more of a Ma and Pa type feeling chain than like PetSmart, or in America you have Petco. Because I don't know, it's just something about Petland, like, all of the employees feel like they actually really know their stuff, and they're all really local. And they're Crested Geckos. They keep a big tank. They're like a massive tank, and none of the adults are for sale. They're a breeding colony, and they only ever sell the babies. So Roger is the babies of the Crested Geckos that are kept at Petland. So every time I go there, I say hi to Roger's parents, even though I'll never know what two and they are as parents, but you know what I mean. And Roger has been similar to Henry. Roger has been such a learning experience, but different because I didn't just have Roger thrust upon me like, here's a fish. I learned a little bit about him before I got him. So I bought him the tank and everything, and then eventually we went bioactive, and that's when I started getting to plants and all that. I look at Roger every day, and I'm so thankful I have not killed him yet, because for some reason, I know that Crested Geckos are one of the hardiest sort of beginner reptile species, but I'm so afraid that I'm going to do something wrong because we've had cats my whole life, you know what I mean? And we've had dogs for a chunk of my life, and taking care of a reptile is such a different experience, and he's supposed to live, as long as my cat is. So it's like, we're in this together, Roger. And I'm just always so afraid that I'm going to do something wrong, and he's going to get impacted, or he's going to get metabolic bone disease, or he's going to get too much calcium. And it's it seems like such a tumultuous thing, and I'm just sitting here overwhelmed. But so far, so good. Nothing bad has happened. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for Roger being tough. He's been growing great over the past about year I've had him now. And, he eats great. And he's been definitely progressively, as I've had him and as he's grown up, less afraid of me. When I first got him, if I went to pick him up, he bit me. He bit me multiple times in the beginning there. It doesn't hurt. It's just kind of sad. Like I'm being bit by this tiny little lizard. But now he doesn't bite me. He doesn't even really fight me when I try to take him out of the terrarium anymore. He just kind of hangs out. I scoop him up under his belly or pick him up like this, and he just kind of loafs, and he comes out and he sits with me for a bit. And he's just great. I just love it. And I love having the terrarium be bioactive. It just creates its own little ecosystem. And I love watching the plants thrive. And I love, digging in the dirt and finding isopods and seeing that they're doing great. It's a really interesting experience that I had never thought of before, having Roger. And now that I have him, I think it's so fun. And I think it's so interesting. And I put a lot of work and a lot of money into that terrarium. And I think it looks great. And it's growing in great. And I think Roger really likes it. So I can't wait for someday, when he gets bigger and when I have the funds, to upgrade that tank to one size bigger, and then have all that extra space to grow more plants in and put more branches in and more trees and that sort of thing. So he's just so silly. I love Roger so much. When you think about a lizard, you don't necessarily think of them each as having specific personalities, but Roger most definitely does. He has little quirks and weird things that he does. Like when we take him out, we almost always put him on the floor. Because my room is pretty big and open, and there's a lot of space on the floor for him to run around if he wants to. And he's so weird. Like, when he poops on the floor, he spins in a circle as he does it. And that's so weird to me. I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe it's not a thing. I have no idea. And just the way he jumps, and he doesn't even know if he's gonna land on anything sometimes. I have to, catch him. It's so silly. And he still has his tail, and I actually don't know that he's a he. I just use he. He hasn't decided yet, because he's not old enough for parts to develop. We will see. I'm thinking no matter what gender Roger turns out to be, though, the name will always be Roger. So doesn't really matter. And it really doesn't matter because it's not like I'm going to breed Crested Geckos or anything, so whatever. It's just so interesting to me, the way that reptiles work and the way you take care of them and the way they shed their skin and the way they eat and the way they... I just think it's so cool. And in case you're wondering, the fact that I have 2 prey items for a cat in my room, in the same room that the cat lives in, she doesn't pay attention to either of them. I got so lucky with Lena. The first day Henry was here, she noticed him once and her eyes got really big and I just told her no. And she's never looked at him again since. And I don't even think she knows Roger's in the terrarium because he's not the most active, right? Like, I don't know how I lucked out with Lena because, like, other cats would just keep trying to get at a lizard and the fish, right? She just doesn't care. She's never taken interest in either of them. However, what she does take interest in is the next thing I'm going to talk to you about, and that is, I don't consider them pets, but we're going to include them anyway. Because I have a reptile, I have to keep a colony of crickets. And Lena does love watching the crickets, and I let her do it all the time because, like, why not? It's just cat TV. But, so I only have 1 reptile, so it doesn't make sense to keep 1,000 crickets. And I wouldn't want to anyway because I just don't like them. They're creepy. I'm getting less creeped out by them the longer I have them. The longer I have them, the longer, like, the more I'm able to, like, look at them and not get the heebie-jeebies and, like, not be completely grossed out by them when they just kick their legs off because I pick them up with the tweezers. Like, I still don't like them. I will never like them, but I'm not, like, scared of them like I was when I first got Roger, which is great, because that was another reason I wanted a reptile, was so that I would love them enough to have to feed them bugs, and then I would get over my bug fear. So it's definitely working so far. I don't love having crickets. I really don't. Especially when I get the, like, bigger ones, because Roger's growing, and he's getting bigger now, so he can eat the bigger ones. And then there's always one in the package that chirps. And I have to find that one and single out the chirpy one and feed it to Roger first so that it's not chirping all night. One thing that I do love, though, is keeping the container really clean. I don't know why. It's like a twitchy thing in me that, you know, other more responsible reptile keepers will probably keep crickets all the time and just, like, let them turn over, or, like, breed them even would be the most financially responsible thing to do. But I don't want to do that because crickets aren't expensive. You can get 12 for like $1.50. And I just wait till they all die, or I fed them all to Roger, and then I clean the container, and then I get more. And it's because I don't know what the proper term is. The gene, the bacteria, crickets carry, we're going to go with bacteria. Crickets carry the bacteria for worms. And it's not active unless they eat their poop, but crickets poop everywhere. So if a cricket poops in its food and then another cricket eats that cricket's poop, that cricket now has worms. And what happens if that cricket has worms? Roger's going to eat the cricket that has worms, and now Roger has worms. And it is so hard to find exotic animal vets. I don't even, like, it's just something I hope I don't ever have to deal with, is Roger having worms. So I like to keep the cricket container immaculately clean. Immaculately clean. And if I had a bunch of crickets, or I bred crickets, that would be nearly impossible. So I would rather pay the price, whatever it is, $1.50, $2 every 2 weeks to buy crickets, than save myself the money and risk the worms. I'm sorry, that's just how I would like to do. Is it financially responsible? Probably not, but I'm going to do it anyway. I buy the cricket water gel once every 6 months. I buy the cricket food once every 6 months. Like, it's not like the crickets are a massive expense to keep up or to keep buying or anything. But I just prefer to let them completely run out and then get new ones. Because I like to keep it clean. Like, ever since I learned that about crickets, that they carry worms, and like, I don't ever want to have to deal with that, so I let them all die out, or all of them get eaten, and then I buy new ones. And they die so fast. Within that 2 weeks, I end up with no crickets left because they die so fast. I don't know what it is. I've done everything I can to make their lifespan last, but that's all. They just die fast. Everything I've read about crickets says that they die fast, so I feel less bad about it. But it does always make me feel bad when I come back from, like, Petland or Pet Value or something with crickets, and then I put them in the container, and they always beeline right for the water. Like, are these pet stores not keeping you with enough water? Like, I know that I'm just raising you to be food, but I'm sad that they don't ever have enough to drink, you know? It does make me sad. And last, but certainly not least, this video would not be complete without my accidental pets. You might be wondering how you can get accidental pets. That would be not doing your research before you buy something. So, I went to the Reptile Expo in January with Alyssa, and we went to the Tarantula Canada booth, and I was looking at isopods. That was when I was creating the bioactive terrarium for Roger, and I wanted isopods for in the terrarium. I knew you could get dwarf white, but I wanted maybe something a little more fun because I didn't know as much back then because I'm stupid and didn't look into it. So I started looking at all of the Tarantula Canada isopods. My friend Alyssa suggests these peach ones, which now I know actually would have been perfect for the terrarium. Didn't buy those though, did I? No, instead I bought these other ones that I thought looked way cooler. They're called armadillidium klugii. Now, if you don't know anything about isopods, I don't blame you, but armadillidium klugii are actually not great for a tropical terrarium. They prefer more like arid, dry situations. So TLDR, I bought isopods that I can't put in there. So I now have isopod pets. And it's sort of a blessing in disguise because watching them do things makes me like less afraid of bugs as well. So it's sort of similar to the crickets, and they don't need anything. Like I have them in a bin over there that I bought from the dollar store. It's got a cuttlefish bone in it for calcium. I throw in some leaf litter sometimes, a couple of fish pellets because they like those, and then there's cork bark and some like substrate in there. I did put in some springtails, but I think most of them have died because I'm not keeping it humid enough in there because they don't need it that humid. And I mean, I think they're doing pretty well. I haven't noticed the numbers reduce. If anything, I've noticed over the past couple of weeks some breeding happening, so I'm thinking I'm going to end up with more. I might have to move them into a bigger container, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I've accidentally ended up with isopod pets, but it's a blessing in disguise because, like I said, I realized that, you know, they're not typical bugs, but I look at them and it's like, is my instant reaction to be creeped out with them? Yes. But they're isopods. They can't hurt you. They're just roly-polies. Like, not only can they not hurt you, but isopods eat, like, decaying gross stuff. Like, the isopods that live in Roger's terrarium, like, they're in charge of eating, like, plant matter that's dying, and Roger's poop, and things like that. Like, they're just good. I don't know. I don't have a reason to be afraid of them. Like crickets, they bite and they chirp and they do the thing with their legs, and crickets still freak me out, especially when you buy the bigger ones and you can see their little like fangs and stuff. I don't like it, but I'm getting better at it. Whereas isopods don't really freak me out at all. They're fine. I don't mind that I have this accidental pet, especially because they don't cost anything. But I'm still not a big fan of the crickets. But Lena is a big fan of the crickets, and sometimes when she's being a little extra annoying, I just take the container off my desk and I put it on the floor, and she just sits there and watches it. I can't do that at night, though, because I don't trust her not to bat it around and then, like, knock it over, and then there are crickets everywhere. I don't trust her to not do that, but during the day, supervised, I can give her a little cat TV. And yes, those are all of the animals that live in this house. So 3 of the 6 are mine and my responsibility. So Lena, obviously, the fish, Henry, the Crested Gecko, Roger, and then of course the crickets and the isopods as well, but they're not as much work as like a real animal. And I do a lot for Heather as well, because other than my younger sibling, I'm the only one that Heather's not afraid of, so I do brush her sometimes and that sort of thing, but it's not a big deal. I give her toys and I play with her and that sort of thing, so that's great. But the dogs are my parents, so I don't have to do anything for them except for think they're cute and play with them sometimes, which is the best. Having a dog with none of the responsibilities. But Lena, I am completely... Lena's the big one that I'm like completely responsible for, because I'm always ordering cat litter. If I order them from one of my local pet stores, they'll deliver it for me. So I order her cat litter, and I buy her cat food and treats and endless amounts of toys that she doesn't even want to play with, and then cat beds and stuff that she won't even use. Instead, she sleeps on a reusable shopping bag. Her favorite bed ever is a reusable shopping bag that I bought at Spirit Halloween. I don't understand her. She's a weirdo, but I love her anyway. And yeah, so those are all of the animals in this house and all of the creatures and the bugs and that sort of thing. I want you in the comment section below to let me know a little bit about your pets, or pets that you've had, or pets that you want someday, because especially in the sort of climate that we live in right now, what is better to talk about than animals? I just want to hear about animals and pets and that sort of thing, because that is what I love, and it's what makes me happy, and I feel like it's probably what makes you happy as well. And yeah, anyway, thank you so much for watching this week's video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed already, and I will see you next time. Bye!